Okay, cool. So, by way of introduction, I'm Andrew. I'm one of the recruiters here at Friction IT. I focus on software development in the London market. For those who don't know us, we're a tech recruitment firm based in Leeds, and we're really involved in the tech meetup scene there. We wanted to keep the tech community engaged and give something back during lockdown. So, we've put together this webinar series called Lockdown Learning. This is in fact the 10th in the series, and today we'll be exploring how to deliver quality software faster, even during a pandemic, using a shift left approach. I'd like to welcome and introduce our speaker, Donna Grief, who's the head of software delivery and has kindly agreed to talk you through some of his experiences and thoughts on the topic. So over to you, Donna.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I'll start with sharing screen. So again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. Yeah, as Andrew was mentioning, I will handle all the questions at the end of the talk, but feel free to throw them all up into the Slido. You can post them anonymously, so it's even more freedom to post whatever question you want. I also have the freedom to not answer them. You can use it with the QR code as well and everything. So yeah, feel free to go in there, just go to slido.com and type in that code and we'll all be good. Cool. Yeah, just another thing with my side of things. So the only part of Chatham House that I do ask, yeah, there we go. Thank you. The only thing I ask around the Chatham House rule side of things is any companies that I work for. So my opinions on my own, they do not represent the companies I work for, etc. So just to adhere to that. Otherwise, if you want to reference this and everything, you can use my name for your free will. I don't mind. Cool. Let's get started. So yeah, shift left testing, delivering quality faster, that side of things. So yeah, I'll go a bit about myself and why I believe in this and that side of things. And then during the talk, I'll talk about how we can do it alongside how you can also encourage a culture of personal development and cohesion within your teams. So yeah, as Andrew said, I'm a head of software delivery. I used to do a lot of the head of QA side of things, but I've made a proactive change to my job title and function. So I've actually taken on the software delivery side of things as well, because if we really look at QA as a function quite critically, what do we really do? We actually deliver software. We are that gateway that allows the engineering team and that sort of things to go out with confidence into production. And yeah, that's pretty much the reason behind taking this approach. It stops the questions of like, oh, I don't have a QA for this project, get me a QA. It's like, well, that's HR, that's not me. We will be there to dictate how you do things and give you some guidance. So hence that change. Cool. So a bit of the mindset into how we look at things. So yeah, read through that side of things, but really a very common trend with companies and software delivery is the speed to market is really important. It's what can really set yourself out from any competitors that might be there. So if you can get something out there faster and getting users using it, then you have that edge over anyone else who comes second. However, with that, if you go out first with something that your competitors don't have yet, but it's really rubbish, they'll probably go look at your competitors, which have a better thing, and then you've lost all of that momentum. Analogy I take is the mouse. Think about IBM when they brought it out, no one used it. Apple did it, now everyone uses it. So yeah, it's all about the idea of making sure you have a high quality bar, making sure you can still deliver fast, but also do not focus on perfection. We still need to also think about the break it fast, fix it fast understanding in there. And it's really important that that common misunderstanding that quality is the first thing to go away for that side of things is, yeah, it's completely wrong. Quality doesn't have to suffer. You can actually have an even higher bar of quality, but still move really fast and fix it really fast too. And all of this is even more important during this pandemic. A lot of companies are now finding a difference in revenues, a difference in revenue streams. Some of them are disappearing completely. Well, there's opportunities in other spaces and we need to react to that. really, really fast. So yeah, and another common trend that's been happening around the pandemic is people think cost saving and everything around those side of things. That doesn't need to mean less people. We can also do a lot of this with the same amount of people and save money by using less and getting rid of some of the waste. So why? This slide is a little bit repetitive, but why are we proposing this? It kind of breaks down the idea of shift left. What does it actually give you? It reduces your costs, makes you way more efficient. You get a higher quality bar, and it will give you that competitive advantage in speed and quality. So yeah, it's really, really powerful when implemented properly. So, so how does shift left save us all of this money? Well, if we think about the cost of a bug and when we have to fix it, the later on in the cycle that we find a bug, the way more expensive it becomes, exponentially so in many cases. Whereas if you think, if we find, or if we solve the bugs right in the conception phase, we don't even need to change code. We don't even need to change tests or anything. It's a case of just tweaking the acceptance criteria and the concept. And then from there, we can code it to that. In the design phase, again, it's probably just a bit more talking. It's quite cheap, that side of things. Whereas in development, you're now starting to think of rework, retesting, that side of things. And then going through the testing phase, you've now missed something. So you now need to go back, discuss it, develop it, retest it. And if you're in production, well, then you've got a whole process to follow around that side of things. And then also with all of that, you start finding yourselves in a downward time spiral. Costs start to escalate for projects. And so we get into the awful places that we often see around quality and just features that are left there half-baked. So what does it look like? Well, the traditional way, you had the tests that were passing the code, because we would develop the code, we would write the tests to say, yes, the code is what we say it is. But that's kind of a backward thing. I mean, we're just saying, well, we had something, we've developed something that may be right. We're now testing that the development that we think is right, and then we release it. And all the way at the beginning, we're like, well, you misunderstood acceptance criteria X. We have to go all the way back. So the traditional process is, yeah, quite backward in the way, it's quite antiquated. It's a very waterfall way of doing things. By the way, you can still implement shift left within waterfall as well. It is quite agnostic of all frameworks that you use, whether agile, waterfall, you name it. You should be able to get the idea and concept of testing first, and building the test first and then developing to pass. Which is exactly what shift left testing is. The code must pass the tests. Another name for it is acceptance test-driven acceptance test-driven development, or test-driven development, any one of those. It's essentially that, but putting it more on a business process viewpoint and making the business buy into it a lot more. And also we're testing the requirements. We are ensuring that everyone understands what we're doing. Tests will give you a lot of clarity and confirmation that everyone together understands it. It gives all that context value to the acceptance criteria. And all of this you can get together really effectively so long as you make sure you've got your communication in your teams. And by that, I don't mean emails or documents and things like that. Get on a call. I think with the whole pandemic side of things, it's shown everyone that it's really easy to just jump on a call and talk to each other. And there's no real worry about that side of things. So yeah, absolutely. If you're uncertain about something, just tell your team, let's have a chat about it and get everyone on a Zoom call, a hangout, however we feel. So yeah, communication is absolutely key to this and any process really. So just backwards and forwards a bit. Traditional way, why is it slower? So you'll see from these really thin graphs, we can see that we're putting a lot of the effort into the development phase and all those sort of communication bits early on. But the testing phase is all coming up kind of after the development and into the test phase and up to the release point, where we get that usual mad rush before a release, finding blocker issues, making sure it's ready to go out, and starting to get a little bit frantic. We start missing things, and then we release, we find we've missed some things, and our development has to come back in to fix it. We have to retest it, we have to re-release it, and so the cycle continues until we finished. But the important thing you'll notice is that your quality bar starts off low and only goes up very slowly. It's because you're constantly chasing and you're not actually setting your quality standard up front. You're having to catch up, and with speed and time crunches, you will find that that's a really slow gradient around that. And the other things around it as well, is that your morale and your teams will start to suffer, because teams will start releasing one after another like this, and they'll start to lose pride and value in what they're delivering. The cohesion, and you'll start to find a bit of infight. I mean, it's a strong word, but the teams will start getting a bit more fractious, and there'll be a bit more friction inside of things. Sometimes you can find that you'll have teams that are starting to blame each other around problems and things, or why didn't you do that? It's just a downward spiral, and cohesion can suffer in the traditional way. And it's why we often see some teams break down, then other ones just manage to find a different way around and work on it. But more often than not, we'll find more problems than solutions in that. So shift left testing, how does that make us better? Well, the release, bug, rework, hotfix cycle, that's largely eliminated. Will it be completely eliminated? No, there will always be bugs, there will always be issues, but certainly there will be a lot less. And any bugs that we do find down there will likely be very insignificant or small issues that we can iteratively fix without panic afterwards. Also, you can see that with this model, because you've got set side of things in here, your deliveries become way more predictable. You can start, your planning will actually start meaning something, and you're starting to really just deliver the value on time and not feel as stressed as a team. And with that, you then can allow yourselves to be better together, work on processes together, build better morale. You guys are all a lot more happier together and working. There's a lot less blame going on and things like that. And another big thing in there, you're setting your quality bar up right at the beginning, and from there you will only increase. So you're setting it high to start, and you get higher than you would have had you had not done that. Yeah. Let's do that quick. Yeah. So what are the details? I mean, how does this really work within your teams, and what are the phases? Who's responsible for what? Well, really, we're all responsible for quality, but we do need to make sure that as our individual roles, we all come together, we all write tests, we all agree on them, and therefore we all agree on the requirements so that we build the right thing first time. If we cannot agree or feel uncertain about a test or requirement, question it, and maybe push that requirement onto phase 2. Maybe we're not ready for that requirement. Maybe that is a iterative thing that we need data for. That's fine. Take the MVP process and use it properly. That's exactly what this will start bringing you, is you're understanding what is important to deliver right now. What do we know we need to deliver? And if we can do that, let's deliver it. And anything else we can go afterwards. So yeah, and then with that, you are writing your tests before you write a line of code. And with that, I mean, your automated test will be writing code, but I mean that by the solutions code. Before you write anything for that, make sure you write your acceptance test automation first, and that you're starting to plan your test process first, and then develop code so that your code is passing the tests. And absolutely, something that's really powerful in all of this is to use your conference tooling and things like that, or when you're back in the office together, pairing up, traditional pairing side of things. Absolutely, pair up, sit together, work through all of these together, and you'll start seeing that actually it's everyone working in these steps together will actually make it so much faster. We're all getting understanding from each other, and we're actually getting those extra pair of eyes of review before we're even looking for review. And that's really powerful. It's at a place where it's really cheap to fix and change. But yeah, absolutely. Again, the main thing is communication. Make sure you're getting together on your Zooms or Hangouts, etc. There's just so many tools, and your company will definitely have one they've chosen. There's also, well, yeah, I start this one off by saying, like, but why do we need QAs then? If the developers are writing tests and we're thinking about all the tests up front, why do we need QA professionals? The simple answer to that is quality intelligence. So development and engineering in its sense is a very highly focused, I don't want to say narrow vision, but really sort of in the problem itself, and really blind to the wider landscape. And that's correctly so. We need to have that focus to really solve the problem effectively and efficiently. Whereas quality intelligence can come in and get the higher and wider view of everything, which machines can't really do. And then they can start adding in the more contextual testing and functions in there, where we can start thinking, is this fit for our users? Is it actually what we were looking for? When we initially came up with this whole concept, now that we've developed it and learned a bit about what we're trying to solve, is it still a viable product? These are questions that quality can actually really give you. And they can actually get a lot more value out of themselves. All of this will also allow for a lot more time for personal improvement and growth, because we're putting a lot more automation in up front, and coding becomes a lot quicker. We get a lot more speed out of everything. We're now thinking a lot more about intelligence and fit for purpose side of things. And we can also consider the non-functional aspects a lot more calmly. So all of this, we can start thinking, well, how we're improving, how we're growing it, how we're making sure it's stable and right. And you start seeing a much cleaner landscape for your code changes. I think I've labored on them a bit, but I've listed out some of the benefits you can get. I will share the slide after the talk with Andrew and everything. So there'll be I'll probably send it in a Google Drive link. But there are so many benefits that we have out of this and very few negatives. The only real negative of note, that when you're trying to sell this to the people you're working with, you will see an initial slowdown because it is a new change. With change comes the change cycle, and understanding that and owning that will make the transition a lot easier, and just allow you to just be real with the whole side of things. So you'll feel that initial slowdown where you need to start having your conversations up front, your tests up front, and everything like that. And we'll feel like, well, we're not delivering anything. We're not actually building anything. But really, you will only see that speed reward later on once you've done a few cycles of this. I usually feel like about 2 or 3 cycles, and you start seeing a real speed increase. And in some cases, where I've seen it go up to like halving delivery times in teams. So where they would say they took 2 weeks to deliver something, it would be literally in a week and it's done and dusted, and there's no rework, which is really positive. And yeah, absolutely keep things transparent. When things are not working, voice them. Say, look, this doesn't feel like it's worked. How can we tweak it to make it work for us? And just pull everyone in. It'll help keep everyone included, and everything like that, which is really powerful. It's the same thing, like I say, with Agile. Be agile with Agile. What I'm saying to you here is literally a set of rails for you to work with that will help you deliver faster, but it may not work completely this way for you. You might need to make tweaks with your own personal circumstances. Every company that I've worked in has worked in a different way, with different tools, with different people. It always changes, and that's energizing, but also you need to keep quite open to these sort of things. Yeah, continue as a team and you will succeed. But with all of this, just because we can deliver faster doesn't mean that it's done faster. You need to remember about the shifting right too. And what this means is you need to monitor production. You need to monitor, are your customers actually getting value? A definition of done is, have your customers received value from the feature you've delivered? If the answer to that is no, short answer is you haven't delivered. You need to then make changes or decide whether the feature is actually worth it or not. And then also ownership. It's one of, in my opinion, it's one of the biggest drivers to team cohesion. If the whole team feels together that they own something and together they work in owning it and taking responsibility for anything that goes wrong, working together to fix them, setting up alerting, setting up messaging, demos, all of these side of things, it just starts bringing you closer, and you'll see that the team cohesion and the team morale and the way that we all work together will just increase so much. And even in a pandemic, even while we're all working remotely, it's, even though we have to do it remotely and that side of things, if we're still owning it together and sitting in the problem together and solving it together, we will just feel a massive coming together, and yeah, we'll all just succeed by doing so. Yeah, that's all that I had on there. I will close that. I'll go on to some questions. Yeah. So how do I get management to buy into the idea of spending more time in the concept phase when the current mindset is to release feature after feature? A couple of things. That's a great question. This is probably one of the biggest ones for this. How do you do it? So how I do it is, number one, data. So use the idea from when you've got your last release, how many times did you rework a bug because it wasn't understood by the requirements? Now, except this whole shift left side of things would have got rid of that bug entirely. So that time saving, and then you can also look at the consequential time pressures on the next features, etc. You can then say, well, this time would have been eliminated and we would have actually delivered all of these things on time and been able to move on to the next one. So using that data and putting through the benefit that it gives them, I think massively sells this. And in a way it comes in there. I mean, Andrew will, I'm sure, back me up on this, but when you're trying to sell something, it has to be mutually beneficial. If it's not, you've got no hope of selling it. So yeah, 100%. Make sure that what you are, when you are selling it and you're trying to put the business case through, that you are showing them what they get out of it and what we get out of it, and then also using data to back up your decisions. You will have this data somewhere showing how long it takes for you to release and how to fix, and all the churn that you go through. Just make sure that you're being honest and open about it, but also don't be too negative about it. No one likes people throwing out, oh, it's always a problem, it's always a problem. Just go, these are the facts, this is how we solve it. And from there, if you go with that approach of here's facts, here's a problem, this is a solution, you look instead like you're coming up with a positive way forward, rather than saying, oh, it's always broken and stuff, we should probably try something like this, and then we'll just fix all the broken stuff. And it's too much about the negatives and not enough about the positive. Is acceptance test-driven development the same as BDD? No. So this is another talk entirely. This is brilliant. So business-driven development, I've often said, like, if we think about business-driven development, or if we want to even go behavior-driven, that's what all development is. If we think about it, what are we actually developing? We're developing features that enable functional behaviors for our customers. And if we take it as the business-driven side of things, which is the older way of it, it's the business saying we want feature X, Y, and Z. Well, that is what happens. So I think it's a name given to a way of doing your tests and your documentation. So Gherkin and Cucumber side of things, I think it's fantastic to do that. I'm certainly an advocate for Gherkin, but I say keep that as your close project documentation, as your tests for your application in there. And I go even further in saying make sure it's a different language to the code that you're coding in, because then when you come to refactoring, you've got your documentation that tests it from a behavioral point of view, and you can refactor it to your heart's content. If you're not breaking behavior functions, then you're not breaking anything. Really, you're just making it better. And then, yeah, test-driven development. I mean, it's I like to think of it as the more common sense way in how to develop, because I'll go back to the comment I said earlier around the traditional way is to make tests pass the code, which is the wrong way. It's the same as a developer testing his own code. They'll have a bias. They'll also overlook a few things because they're not thinking of a wider ecosystem, etc. Whereas if we write the tests up front on what we know we want to do, then we develop the code to pass the test. It's actually making a solution for something we've set in stone before. And from there, we can actually build a better solution. So BDD and acceptance test driven development, I do not think they're the same thing, in my opinion. But again, that's my opinion. Other people may differ. Are there any more questions if anyone wants to pipe up? Cool. I guess not.
Okay, no more questions?
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Let me ramble.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. Please follow us on LinkedIn for updates about future events. Next week, we've got Building Resilient Websites with Chris Taylor on Thursday the 11th, and the much anticipated Leeds United and Technology on Friday the 12th, which will be a really great one. If you have any more ideas for topics that you'd like to hear about, or something that you'd like to talk about yourself, please get in touch. We'll be sending a feedback form around. If you could please just let us know what you thought, that'd be really helpful for us in terms of planning future exciting sessions. So finally, thanks very much, Dono, for sharing your experience. I really appreciate it. It's really interesting. And to everyone else, just enjoy your weekend and of course, stay safe. Cheers.
Cool.